And hello, everybody, and welcome to this evening's edition of Beyond the Ordinary Show. And I don't know about y'all, but I'm feeling an interesting flow of energy in how my body, how my consciousness is not only interpreting it, but being with it. And there's waves of peacefulness. I've been having very vivid dreams the last couple of days, and not necessarily suggesting that everybody has to be in the spaces having dreams. This is what's coming up for me. Um, but it's like I'm learning something new. There's a different way in which I am functioning um, with whatever is coming in, and I can't quite identify. And I'm glad Z's here because I know she's going to help us identify some of the things that are coming up collectively for so many of us. Um, but it's who am I with these new energies? Who am I with these new energies? How do I integrate? How do I play with these? Has something been taken away from me? And it kind of feels like that a little bit, but I know that's not true because I'm still accessing information as I call it in relationship to others, in relationship to other things that have been coming in as well. So we're in a very interesting point in consciousness. And I think we're adjusting to, again, the new normal and finding different ways to play with it. And discover what the potential of that perhaps may mean. And again, Z is such an amazing facilitator, and I like to call her an oracle of what we're stepping into. So it's gonna be a phenomenal call today. We'll get into live Q&A also. So if you all want to ask your personal question on the new webinar platform that we have here on Zoom, to ask your question, you can type it into the chat box. There's a Q&A box, but to ask your question live on video, I hope you turn on your video. Click on the participants button in Zoom at the bottom of the screen. When you click on that, you'll see a hand that you can click on, and it'll let me know that you want to ask a personal live question. And so we'll go through those as well. And again, I'm excited for that part of today's call also, because I know that we're going to build something together in this very sacred call. So again, super excited to have Z. If you're not familiar with her, I want to read her bio to you. And Z, say hi to everybody.
Oh, hi, everybody.
But let me read about Z. I know I'm in a different direction today. So Z, by that laugh, that should tell you so much right now. But Z, Earthstar Healer, is a vessel for evolutionary angelic consciousness through the arts of oracular singing. And Z is going to begin today's call with a song and bringing the transmission. And we're all going to drop into this beautiful space with her. Again, through her arts of oracular singing, and the rooster agrees, writing and multidimensional energy work, she believes that reclaiming our infinite creativity through the healing of our sexuality is the way to building heaven on earth. Earthstar Healer is an organic source, intelligent light and sound technology, which restores distorted DNA and geometry in the multidimensional light field we perceive as reality. Z teaches others how to access our higher consciousness and psychic abilities to heal and embody complete energetic sovereignty and move into a life of purpose. And Z, with that, welcome to the call. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always just a deepest pleasure being here with you, John. And what a crazy time, immense time that we're in together here. So I'm just really happy to be here, be with everybody.
And as we settle into the welcome, shall we go ahead and go in the song? Ah, so beautiful, Z. So beautiful. And the comments coming in already. Um, Heart Light Healer. I gave tears of joy running down my face. How angelic. Um, and what a beautiful sound it is. And again, so many, of course, amazing complimentary um, feelings that are streaming through. Z, in that transmission through song, what do you feel is being transmitted to the people who are listening in this? And what in particular this one came through for you?
So I feel that when I start to sing, I call it oracular singing because I'm really opening up the channel to become an oracle. And this process has actually shifted a lot over the last couple months. And I know that we're gonna have open up that discussion in a little bit because I feel like, in the past, I have been channeling. And actually this became a blurb in my book where we talk about channeling versus embodiment. And so these days when I'm singing, it feels like my entire body just like moves up into the angelic realm. And when I'm singing, like when I click into that space, I think you can kind of tell from the beginning to the middle and towards the end, it's almost like the frequencies begin shifting. It's like as I'm merging into that realm, my body is like there and the frequencies are coming through. And, usually from that place, the songs are very much about unconditional love, feeling this divinity that we are. It's like this resonance that we feel in our cells that our DNA in our body actually recognizes. And then it actually becomes like this food for our body, especially, but our soul too, where it's like, oh, I know that. I know that place is like my home. And so when we drink up that energy, I hope to bring everyone to that place of feeling at ease and in love, at peace, and at home.
Mhm. How did you bridge that in between? Because there's a bridge to get to that space and to that angelic realm and really manifest your intention from there down here.
So I feel like this is a process of kind of purification. So I believe that all beings are angels. And this is part of what I teach, the angelic consciousness. I actually believe that all consciousness is angelic in nature because when we say angelic, we really just mean divine. And because everything is divine, angelic consciousness is what lives inside the trees and the animals and all of people. But we have gone through this period of time that Earth has fallen in this way, and humans really forgot that vital piece of information. Of course, then that was further used to degrade humanity in this way. Of course, I believe that the human vessel is very, very unique and extraordinary in this way, that it was always designed to experience the completeness of creator consciousness. So this is what we're evolving into, exploring and experiencing, kind of this like graduation into what we have been designed to be for billions of years. So this is like the miraculous moment in time we're in as these human vessels, right? Billions of years in the evolution. Of course, people always have this conflict or argument where it's like, is it creation or is it, is there a God or is there just like evolution? Well, it could always be both, and I feel like evolution is just the divine wholeness morphing and taking delight through time to weave everything that it wants to experience. And so we're kind of in this moment of having experienced this whole grandness of the creation of the universe to finally come to this place where we actually have these incredible physical vessels, the cells and organs that orchestrate this experience of being able to understand and be aware of ourselves as creator beings. And so in that process, I feel like we have fallen to learn about creative responsibility, right? And as we have been creating in total disresponsibility, and we have created suffering and pain and forgiveness and violence, we're kind of waking up out of that slumber. And we're like, oh, wait a minute. We don't really want to create all of that. And once we have come to that understanding, we're like, well, there's all of this brilliance and extraordinary everything else that we can actually create instead beyond this point. And so I feel like our remembrance and our purification of our consciousness, and there's quite a lot of it to do. I feel like a lot of my work really centers around this because our consciousness has really been, let's say, controlled and degraded and manipulated over especially the last 100 years. I was just having an ecstatic dance party with my friends yesterday, and most of the songs that they were playing, it was this virtual Zoom meeting, so there was a DJ, and most of the songs he was playing was great, and then he just like slipped this, like, I can't even remember what song it was, like a 90s pop song in it, and then for some reason that song reminded me of a Britney Spears song called like I'm a Slave for You, and then it just kind of like rang something. It's like I remember growing up in that, and like so many of us grew up and lived in the society where all of those music is constantly playing. So that's just one example of the ways that our consciousness may have been subconsciously warped that keep us from experiencing our true angelic consciousness. So I think that the angelic consciousness is already there inside everyone: enlightenment, purity, angelic beingness, whatever you want to call it. And that it's only that, there are things in the way from us truly experiencing that. The trauma, intergenerational distortions, and the mind control that we have installed into our complex being, and all of those things. And so my work is a lot about reminding and sparking that light of angelic creator beingness inside all of us, and assisting us with these light technologies to clear those distortions that keep us from experiencing that all the time.
Beautiful. We'll talk about light technologies and opportunities to clear distortions. How are you seeing that this Eclipse gateway helping us or assisting with the purification process?
Can you repeat the last part, the gateway part?
Yeah, how do you think that this Eclipse gateway is assisting us with the purification process?
Okay, so I think I'm beginning to experience a lot of things slightly differently than I was before. And a part of this is that, a lot of people in my community know that I was very pregnant the last time I was on the show, and I actually gave birth to my daughter on the 20th of May. And I was in great telepathic communication with the soul since before she was conceived, and kind of knew, what her gifts were, and that she was a master. In fact, I understood her to be my teacher in the celestial realms. And so it came as a great surprise that she only decided to stay for 9 days. And then on May 29th, she actually transitioned. And as I like to say, she ascended into fourth density. And so for the past month, I have been just inside this really deeply intense earth and star initiation, where my consciousness has completely shifted. It was like, I already saw somebody post, "This is our new normal," in the chat box, because that's what she would tell me. Her name was Kara. She would tell me this is our new normal, as like my consciousness is just like more merged with where she is. And for days I didn't sleep. I couldn't sleep, and I couldn't really be sad yet, because my consciousness was just like where she was, but it was still not integrated. And so I would then plummet into this week-long, as I would say, dive to the underworld, where I just couldn't get out of bed and, cried and couldn't eat anything. It was just like the deepest pain that I could feel, I feel like, probably as a mother or a human being. And then as, that wave passed, I would feel this expansion move closer and closer down through my body until finally just the other day, I was driving the car and I could see Kara flying like above the car. And I thought I was just going to be like really sad. But instead I was just like, my whole body was just shaking and I could feel, and it's like she pulled my body up into fourth density. And, I've heard a lot of people talk about the dimensions. I've had my own downloads about different dimensions. For example, I had a teaching about the seventh dimension, or the seventh density. Sorry, people use those words differently. So let's stick to one thing. So seventh density, I know that there's a part of me there, and I started, channeling some information about that density in teachings last year, but this was completely different. This was like, I wasn't channeling information about it, but I was kind of almost moving my body into it. And I understand this to be the process of ascension that I've heard so many people talk about, having this very visceral experience of literally having my body shift into a higher vibratory energy band. And so when I was there, I saw myself flying with Kara and my husband as well. And I knew that we all had bodies there and we're still together there. Doesn't really make it any easier for my physical body. In fact, I had one of these waves just today. I told John that I took a nap earlier. He was like, "Oh, you look so good." I was like, "I don't know, just took a nap." But anyway, so when I popped into fourth density, which I feel like I'm beginning to integrate the state, what it looks like is almost like the same space, but it looks like a future version, and it looks like a future moment in time, almost like when New Earth is here. And so what I come to understand about that actually is not really that time is like concurrently happening. Well, it is, but what's important here is that we're learning that that everything is created from a higher dimension first, and that we can actually learn to do this in our own lives. And this really moves into how to activate ourselves as a ground crew in a state of mastery versus creating from the same frequency as the old earth, which would just create more of the old earth. So it's like we have to get into the frequency of the new and create from that place, and that pulls the entire creation into that vibratory state or into that space. So what I've been reading is that there's all of these geometries in the higher dimensions, and then there's like planetary intent. So it's like it's our one self. So this is our higher self. Our higher self at the very top is like the ultimate orchestrator or the divine, the creator. So we're like, okay, we would actually like to create heaven on earth. So we would create the energy, we would feel the energy, we would exist in the energy of heaven on earth and allow that blueprint to percolate down through the different densities as it eventually gets closer and closer to here. And so that's why a lot of the way showers say like, there's actually no struggle, there's no war. We might see that a lot of things are still playing out in the 3D, and a lot of way showers say, well, it's actually entirely over. So that is true in the fourth density, and that's how close we are. It's just literally kind of floating above the physical. Now, that reality will have a very difficult time landing if ground crew is not actively opening up to it and pulling it in and anchoring it down. So I feel like, that energy, of course, comes in a lot through the sun. I feel like people hear about like solar flares, and some people say like there's a solar storm, and a lot of people think it's going to be this like super chaotic, crazy thing that happens and kills a lot of people. Well, like those are timeline possibilities, and we're actually going to go deeper into that as well. But from the place that I'm seeing it, so I am a gatekeeper, and I live beside a very new Stargate on the new Stargate system of the Earth. And basically, what the new ley line system, or what the ley line system is at all, was a system of energy that was created with the intention of seeding evolutionary pulses on the planet. So from the angelic or creator point of view, we decided to create this system so that when it was time to evolve the planet, when different phases of evolution were complete, the sun and our intention would pulse the planet into different and deeper, more evolved states of being. And so our human consciousness is actually deeply connected to the earth grid. This was always our intention. It was almost like the way that we would flow love into the planet to support ourselves or our children, whichever way you want to look at it, right? Because we knew that going into the physical was going to be a difficult process. We would have to become physical and then somehow remember etheric energies and, kind of do this whole alchemical thing. And that wasn't going to be an easy task. So we created all of these systems to make sure that we can remember and help ourselves. However, if all of the ley lines are connected to all of consciousness and human consciousness on the planet, this just made it a really easy thing to transform into a mind control technology. So originally the ley lines, of course, were pouring out these energies of organic love and divinity, and every once in a while it would just pulse this wave of evolution. I was thinking about like the creation of different instruments, for example, or creations of different genres of music, or different math, different sciences. All of this energy and inspiration, the muses, so they say, these energies can come in through the ley lines and reach everyone, and the people with the correct intelligent or the correct genetic sequences would kind of receive them, and it would just be this like multidimensional energetic dance. So, of course, because the ley line system is so connected to human consciousness in this deep way, when the military and the church and all of these people that wanted to control that put their places of ritual and control over significant places on the grid, this almost like locked us into a certain frequency of energy. And so I personally believe that we were like, well, actually, it's probably easier to just create a new grid altogether and deactivate that one, so that even if the churches and the military bases were placed in significant places before, they no longer are. So through my grid work journey, which it was 7 years of extraordinary adventure, I have written a book. It's called I Am Starseed. You can find it on Amazon. It's really fun. It just talks about my journey of coming into understanding all of this through experience. So from my personal experience then, I decided that it would be easier for us to create a new ley line system, and that's what we did. So I personally experienced this when I was in Vermont, and so I thought I was going to be working on the Mount Shasta Stargates, but at that time they were telling me that there was too much false light and interference around there during that time for the level of work we needed to do. So I ended up in Vermont, and I ended up in this mountain valley that the Cherokee people used to say the Pleiadians landed here, and that's how we got here. That's like their creation story, and that actually their light ship landed and created that whole valley. It's an amazing place, Lincoln, Vermont. So as I got there, they're like, okay, so we're actually shifting the position of that Stargate to here. I was like, that sounds insane. How are you gonna, like, it was like the Earth and the galactics both agreed that this was a good idea. And of course I was actually there on the Earth, the Sun, and the Pleiades were in alignment. And so there was something there that was happening. The name of the book is I Am Starseed. Somebody was commenting. So all that is to say that, it's almost like we're playing this fun game. We're playing this fun game and getting to experience remembering and coming back into grace and love and magnetism and brilliance every single day, over and over and over again. And it's like the deeper that we move into that, the more like magnificence and joy we feel. And then that keeps us moving and helps us remember that this is what we're actually here to bring to people. And that kind of then resolves this thing about red pilling people. Who are like, oh my God, my family is so asleep. They're so sleepy, and they believe in mass media news. And it's like, I just want to peel away from all of that and say like, well, how about we just help them remember like what true love feels like. And I feel like that is something that is a spark inside everyone, that regardless of what your beliefs are, is something that ultimately we have to come home to in order to find any sort of global peace.
I
I
agree
feel
with
like
you.
I'm rambling.
No, no, I love it. What you're bringing through is beautiful. And yes, it's the, again, we can get into a judgment of where we feel different people are in their lives. And that just perpetuates the separation. That is a different grid line that was activated by those false lights coming in that wanted us to get into those states of, I'm right, they're wrong, this is better, this is worse, this is light,
Yeah.
this is dark. And the one thing that's true, and it's not a belief, when you feel love, it's, you don't believe you feel love, you just are, right?
Right.
And we forget, and really there's a simplicity in that that is so profound and so innocent, but it's really what activates really the full grid tones for Gaia and cosmically about the connectedness of everything and where it emanates from. So it's so beautiful. One thing that you mentioned the word ground crew, and I want you to talk about more what's happening with ground crew for you and your awareness around that.
This is really fun. So I would consider myself ground crew, because I'm here on the ground. As you know, many of us believe that we're from other places, other densities. So for me, it began in 2013, which is kind of the beginning of my book, when I was sitting in this car and this voice was like, where are you from? And I was like, China? And it's like, no, Andromeda. And I was like, what? I've never heard of this word before. So I went home and Googled beings from Andromeda. And of course came to all the starseed stuff on the internet. And I was like, oh my God, I'm an alien. And it's funny because at the time I was taking this anthropology class. I was trying to complete my high school diploma. That was really hard for me, not because I was stupid, but just because it was hard for me to like, tediously do what they were telling me to do. But I remember this one anthropology class assignment. It was like, if you were an alien and you came to Earth to be an anthropologist and you had to study like these things, like dating shows on TV or like frozen dinners, like what would your paper look like? And I was like, I think that's real. I think it's talking to me. So I, quit trying to get my diploma, and I decided to just like spend all of my time remembering who I am. And of course, this that voice that asked me, where are you from? It's this male Andromedan guy that eventually led me to my land that he had left for me before he died. So he told everybody this little Chinese girl from Andromeda was going to come, and that his land and a little small sum of his retirement money was meant for her, because I'm here to, it's almost like this galactic trading post trade-off. So anyway, as I've gone on my adventures, I would ask these guys like, well, what's my role? What am I doing here? And they would say healthcare system, healthcare. Like I'm on the healthcare team. I'm here to transform the world through evolving the healthcare system in some way. And then I would ask, what's my job title? And they would say self-healing guide. I say, oh, that's so great. It took me many years to kind of unravel all of that and go through the experiences in real life to make connections. And of course, that process ongoing. So I have many lives in different frequency bands. And I think this is what's possible for all of us. So I'm kind of just sharing, taking a window into how I experience reality to say that, there's a lot of information out there, and some of it is very flashy and full of entertainment. Like, oh, 7D Syrian, blah, blah, blah. Like, you're a cat in this dimension and you love crystals or something. And it's like very, almost like a farce. It's made a farce out of this thing. Um, and I feel like for me, it's very almost like practical. It's like when I'm in the experience and I'm doing grid work or something, like for example, I'm tending the gate, like I will have all these psychic impressions of different timelines coming in. I'll experience all these crazy higher dimensional stuff. And when most of my time I actually spend it like weaving medicine and thinking about, you know, if okay, so okay, so this is like kind of like the next stage of mastery that we're coming into, right? Last year and the year before, we're talking about energetic sovereignty and clearing implants and stating that we're divine creator beings and not being influenced by other people's energy and what's happening in the world and mass media, just like being in a state of peace and, as they say, equanimity, without like being shaken into reaction in any way. And some people say, well, isn't that kind of like being a psychopath? Well, it's not that you don't have emotions, it's that you have sovereign power over um, when those emotions may be manipulated, or when maybe it's not actually for the highest good that you react emotionally. Of course, there's such deep emotion in that. It's actually like a more profound level of emotion that is felt when you're connected to the peace of the magnificence of all of creation. So it's like when once we've moved through, let's say, like petty emotions, we move into like the profound emotions, from which place is a placid ocean, and we no longer need to, you know, do backflips when our neighbors, you know, annoying us in whatever way and this and that. So I'm talking about this energetic mastery because this year I feel like this theme has been about birthing, has been about creation, and but because humanity has been creating in non-consciousness for a long time, or giving away our creative power for a long time, having had our creative energy hijacked and siphoned and enslaved for a really long time. So anybody that just wakes up really has no concept of how our energy body creates anything at all. We believe that if we want money, we have to do something we hate for a really long time and suffer through it, and then we'll get a little bit, and then we'll always not have enough. And like all of this is how most people believe their energy is spent, or have the vibration they have to be in. So then we start to ask ourselves, like, well, how does our energy body really work? What is it supposed to be like? And I'm talking about this because oftentimes when we believe we are angelics or galactics, we can almost remove ourselves from the 3D at all. I know that a lot of people are saying, like, well, just like, don't worry about the chaos, just do your own thing. Well, I feel like we can both be in a state of higher dimensional integration and peacefully find solutions to things that appear like they need to be moved along in the 3D. So I don't mean like, you know, go into the government building and being violent or anything like that. I really mean like finding something that is truly your passion, something that just lights you up. So for me, that is exploring my body, exploring the consciousness of my body, exploring like the multidimensional creative capacities of my body. And then as I'm doing that, I'm like, well, actually, so I feel like people in the world could really use this. So I would alchemize my gifts into whatever is needed. So for that, it's like assisting humans in healing from planetary enslavement. So for you, it could be something else. Like, say you're a computer guy and you're really good at computers, and you see that there is a serious, child pornography situation on the planet. Like, can you spend your time in a way that corrects that? Like, whatever it is for you, right? But I do feel like that space to be creative only comes after integration, which is why, it's not a walk in the park. This whole process on the planet, it's not like, oh, I just came here to sit on my lawn chair to like watch it all burn, which I feel like a lot of people out where I live is interesting because people have their own gardens that are super self-sustained. So they don't really like care about what's going out in the world. And I have made it my personal mission to spark this, like, let's create something new together kind of thing. But there's so many facets to walking in mastery that I feel like all of it is kind of swirling into culmination now. So for many years before, 1 year we might have been just understanding that we have psychic capabilities and we have higher dimensional selves. We might have an experience like being with one of them, being like, wow, like I feel totally different. But then like the next year we might actually be working through our sacral chakra and realizing that, our earth relationship is really how we build enough energy to create visceral change. And I know that these are completely very different frequency experiences, but all of them are extremely important so that we can alchemize them all together. So again, I've seen a lot of people who are super, super galactic. And it's almost kind of sad because a lot of times there will be attacks on the lower chakras that keep those people from fully embodying. But, even though they've got this amazing multidimensional information, because the lower chakras are not clear, that's to say the earth self, the inner children, the inner baby, the body, if any of these very grounded and 3D parts of us are not clear, then none of that higher stuff can actually make its way down here. And that is why there's a lot of distractions, so we don't fully ground ourselves. Remember that our energy body is a pyramid. So our root chakra is actually the widest or the biggest, is the strongest part of our experience. And our root chakra has to do with our understanding of our physical reality. So if our lower chakras, say like our sacral chakra, our relationships, like if we've never had, warm relationships in our family, which I know that, for me growing up, I had a really difficult time with my family. Like, I feel like our society is not really encouraging of honest and simple, just like being of with each other in gentleness and love. Like a lot of that energy has been just like violently taken away from us. And this is a lot of where that healing in our community needs to happen, I think. And so as that happens, the higher energies are able to swirl down more, and the lower chakras and even our cells, they can actually move up in frequency. And this is a process of ascension, that it happens concurrently. And of course, again, it's not really a simple process because you compound it with the fact that the outside world is just like in absolute chaos, and you have to do the alchemy before you can, find your place out there. And so this is kind of what I'm up to. I have been undergoing this process for about 7 years. When I started waking up to this part of myself as an intergalactic being, my guides told me it would take 7 years for this integration to happen. So that was basically in March. And then I went through this insane initiation with my daughter, which is just like, really has left me, humble is not really the right word. Like, yes, there's like humility here, but there's also just this really strong fire. Like this fire has come online in me where it's like, okay, like I don't have any other purpose than to become the totality of myself and, correct and heal and bring sovereignty and divinity to this world. Like if it wasn't for that, then I would just leave and be with my child, and I would just go away and be with the being that I love the most. I would just not be here. But like, why am I here? And this was like when I was in the pit of the underworld, being like, why has this happened? Like, I hate you, God. All of those like kicking and screaming things that we do. It came down to like, oh, like I have a purpose here. I have a job here. That is why actually Kara decided to do what she did, because, through her choosing this lifetime, like in the way that she has created it, so many downloads and integrations and upgrades have happened to my vessel so that I am able to hold space and be of service to our community in just an even deeper and more complete way. So it's very difficult to like summarize the entire process of awakening and then anchoring into our true self and being a diplomat and becoming actually feet on the ground to serve people. But if I were to say just like a few more words about it, it would be that when it comes down to it, it is just really our embodiment of our love, right? Higher dimension, like the dimensions where we came from, it's just like joy and play. And like every time I see Kara, she's like whizzing and flying and having the best time of her life. And like she's creating while she's doing that. She's in that state while she's creating. So we have to understand how we can come into that vibration before we start to create. And when we do, everything we create will create giant ripples in the reality that uplift the planet into that vibration. And, if anything pulls us out of that very important task, so reading the news, seeing what other people think about the news. I love that one. So if any of that, social media, anything, seeing somebody wearing a mask and having an opinion about it, like if anything pulls you out of the vibration of being in unconditional love, you know that there's still work to do. And that's the most powerful work, right? Because if we can meet the whole reality with absolute acceptance and love, then it's like that automatically opens up this force field for us to actually interact with it and shift it, because there's not conflict. If we're in resistance to it, if we're judging it, then we actually can't shift it as much as we would if we weren't.
For sure. Yeah, and I really see it in the words that keep coming up for me are innocence. It's the innocence. It's the innocence, and that's that activation between that place of humility and of knowing where you're creating from that divine space. And it engenders that joy, it engenders that happiness. And it's, I wouldn't even say it's a force field, and perhaps it is, but it's just those things just cannot stick to you because they're not a vibrational accord. And so it's interesting. A few months ago, I had an experience where I was watching the news, and it's rare that I watch the news at all. I typically get my information as need to know, right? Typically. But this one particular week, it's like, turn on Fox News, turn on CNN. It's like, really? We're watching this? Okay. And I kept noticing the cadence of the announcers, the sense of urgency coming from all of them. And while there were different personalities, they all spoke the same. And it's just, that's how they've been programmed to do. And so my judgment of what I might receive from the media, not that I had a big fear around the media before anyway, because what's for me was for me, and I've gotten to that place a while back. Every once in a while, if you're really immersed, you're going to pick it up, and it's going to become part of your environment, and you're going to assimilate to a portion of it, at least, typically. But in this case, it was coming in, and I had so much compassion and understanding that that's the way that they were entrained, and that's just what they're propagating on their end. But it doesn't mean that I have to protect myself from it. I got to see it for the source of what it was. And from there, right from that moment, it lost whatever power it may have still had over me and having to judge it or having to say it's a certain thing, or again, create that separation from it. Like it could actually take something away from me if I don't let it. And it was profound. It was profound for me. So these energetics that you're talking about, and where we're creating from, and how our judgment with it creates more of that state of that chaos and that confusion. It's huge. And I see it really as a function, again, of where you're accessing, where you're creating from the angelic realm. We're not taking energy from the angelics and bringing it down to create. You're actually going up to the angelic realm and creating from there now. And then that is anchoring in this reality in 3D, but shifting the paradigm, which is huge.
Yes.
Just
That's
huge.
good. That was very articulate.
Well, thank you. Now, I want to ask you, how is it that you're helping people, your clients, people who are listening to you online, taking your courses, to overcome, to get past those belief systems that are really densing them down, if you will?
So it's actually quite a super ultra simple process. I understand that our entire vessel, consciousness, spirit, soul complex is actually holographic, just like the whole reality. So from meditating and accessing our energy bodies, we can actually feel and see where there is tension, where there is pain. And very often our subconscious and our distorted consciousness belief systems are present in the energy field. And actually, this is a real thing that the control system also understands. So, for example, when there's a chapter in my book about me going to see an Ariana Grande concert, and it was like I had all of these crazy synchronicities. For those of you who may not even know who she is, because I didn't, she is like one of the biggest Hollywood pop singers like alive right now. She's like super young. Anyway, she just like started popping up everywhere in my reality for like 3 days, and I at the time had no idea who she was, but like one time I just pulled out my phone and it just like started playing her music on Spotify, and I was like, whoa, I just saw her face on the billboard. And then my ex-boyfriend, who I haven't seen in years, calls me. He's like, hey, I heard you're in town, like I'm going to an Ariana Grande concert. And I'm like, what? So I end up going, and seeing everything through my higher sense perceptions and understanding that they're like actually implanting very distorted um, sexual devices into children, sexual slavery patterns. So I actually do see them as geometry in the energy body. When I work with it, I see space in this way, and I see how actually in the astral plane, like there are all of these, like it's almost like these technologies that continue to siphon off people's energy and use them to create artificial timelines. And when I think about artificial intelligence, I don't think about machines actually. The way that I've been intuitively feeling about it is thinking that like organic intelligence is consciousness. So organic consciousness is, this love that we feel, the openness, the joy, this the friendliness, like the feeling of love, this like warmth, kind of like the state that mammals are in. It's like a very organic state of beingness. And then when it's artificial, that is when a lot of this like really distorted crazy darkness comes from. I think it's artificial because it's just not how the matrix of the universe was designed, right? So that's why I say it's artificial. And that's things like sexual slavery and or even jealousy and being vain. Like all of those things are almost viruses, and there's a lot of different words for it. One of them is Wetiko. I know that a lot of Native American cultures have this word for it. And all of these distortions can be seen in the subconscious and the physical body. So one of my special skills is actually being able to map consciousness. Like when I like look into somebody's consciousness, I almost see it as a geometry of maps, and I can see where the where the artificial intelligence lives, and where, because they feel like almost like if you have a knot in your muscle, and where organic, divine, angelic consciousness is free flowing. And so I say that when we go in to meditate, our body should feel like an expansive field, sky of stars. And I don't want to like scare anybody or make anybody anxious when I say that, but for the most part, you know, even for me, like I've been doing this clearing and healing work for 7 years, and there's still things that are hiding, because think about how many years we have been subjected to mind control, and how many generations that has gone on, like when the slavery really started, right? Like all of those misunderstandings and distortions are stored in our genetics and our subconsciousness, and not into even going to school and watching TV, like all of, we just, like, I want you to just like open up your awareness and perceive how much energy we might have subconsciously soaked up from just like just billboards alone, right? And so there's a lot, and so there's nothing to be ashamed of, and there's nothing to be afraid of. But when we close our eyes, begin to meditate, what we should feel is warmth and love and expansion and joy. And for the most part, you know, there's pain and constriction and confusion and maybe darkness, maybe tightness, maybe coldness. So all of that is like things that, or places where angelic consciousness is not flowing. So it's actually quite simple. I practice um, um, a modified version of the Vipassana meditation, where we're just scanning with the power of our awareness, which is divine source creator awareness. So when we brush and view our light body with the light of this awareness, we can restore and clear and evolve ourselves. And this process might take a little bit of time to master, just like anything. It's like practicing piano or practicing yoga. It takes time because, you know, in the beginning, your spark of divine awareness might be small. Like maybe the part of you that believes that you're not divine might overpower and overshadow that small part of your awareness. But the more that you meditate and proclaim this divine spark as yourself, the more powerful that little spark grows. And then as you practice, you know, the process of clearing and healing becomes faster and faster. And I will go as far as saying that in fourth density, or even, so actually I was going to say in fourth density there's no illness, but that's not true. I would say that actually in fourth density there can still be physical ailments, because physical ailments occur when you come out of balance. I feel like in the third density, you actually have a lot more wiggle room. But for me, like if I avoid any energy, a physical symptom will almost immediately pop up, like within 24 hours. Usually that's cold sores, because it's on my face and it's easy for me to see. This is actually every time. So I remember getting cold sores when I was younger, and I remember them lasting like a week or something. You know, it gets a blister and it hurts a lot, and you're like, what the heck? So in the recent years, as I've started to work with my body, I really haven't gotten sick. I believe that once we get into a certain state of energetic balance, we'll no longer get sick. And if we do get sick, then we can immediately fix it, because it's just our body communicating to us. And that as we get actually higher in frequency, that process happens faster. So for me, one time my mom called me and she was kind of mean, and triggered this like inner child part of me, and I was like grumbling, and I was like, well, like I don't want to meditate about it, like whatever, I'm just gonna like let myself feel upset. Well, of course, the very next day I get this cold sore, and then I'm like, okay, crap, like I can't avoid it, I can't deny it. So I look up in my metaphysical anatomy textbook, and of course it's all about like shame and conflict and like unresolved emotional energy. And of course, and then I go and meditate on it, and it basically immediately goes away. Like within 4 hours it heals and it's gone. and this, whenever something comes up in my body, that is how I deal with it. And basically it happens every single time without fail, that I'll find the underlying energetic vibration that's causing the disturbance, and then as soon as I resolve it, it disappears. I know that that process can take a long time. For example, a lot of cancers, arthritis is about, conflict and judgment, all of that, all of those stuck energies, and it could take a long time to clear those out. What I'm saying is that, I guess, I feel like I'm rambling again. I hope this is helpful.
Oh, this is very helpful. You're not rambling at all. Not rambling at all. This is wonderful. So again, we're getting into this period of this healing and this awareness, and our body's coming with us also. And that communication,
Yeah.
veil between that communication is getting very thin. And I, what I like about the work that you're doing and what you're doing, first of all, there's a vibrational harmonic that you offer that once put in that, it's like going from muddy waters into clear crystalline blue waters to swim in. And in that we restore, we're not swimming in polluted waters, we're swimming in restorative water. So that's one way that I would equate just the transmission of your being. And even through your music and your song, your voice, it like elevates, if you will, the physical and the etheric body to meet its particular place, where the realization of what's this congruence can be felt in comparison with the light that's being brought in. And with that awareness, it gives us power of choice. It gives us the ability to decide what it is that our preference would be to navigate through. And so it's a beautiful way that brings it in, but then your cosmic awareness and your ability to tap into the future, all that brought in, it's really empowering to navigate. And again, for these ground crew, for those that are in the ground crew, and so many of y'all are, I probably said to that, yes, that a long time ago, but it's being activated now as we're bringing in those integrated energies into a very physical realm, and we're doing something with it now. We're doing something, and first and foremost, I think we're doing it for ourselves. See, I think it always has to start there. But from that, we can't help but to want that and share it with others in service to what's available to everybody. So it's beautiful. So the transmissions and the way that you bring it in are just phenomenal. And again, you have this multifaceted way of weaving through and into that light. And you're providing more of that. Z, I want to get into some Q&A. And because there's some questions coming in that I think are great to answer. And if y'all want to ask your personal question, you can type it into the Q&A box, or you can click on the participants link at the bottom of the page where you're listening to this call from, or of the link. And when you click on participants, it'll give you an option to raise your hand. And we'll get into as many questions as we can with our remaining time. But before we do that, Z, I want to get into the special offer that you're bringing in, because you're bringing what we're doing here and these other transmissions, and there's another special, a couple of special items that you have in tonight's Beyond the Ordinary special offer. So everybody, if you scroll a little bit up on your page, there's a special offer button. Click on that button, it'll take you to the Z special offer page for this evening. You can also, I think April has typed into the chat box the special offer link. You can click on that as well, and it'll take you to the same page so that you can follow along. And Z, if you would, describe what people who decide to go deeper with you in this way are going to receive through this interaction.
Yeah, so I feel like John really succinctly expressed the way that I communicate, because for me, it does feel like a transmission oftentimes is not really even about the things that are coming out of my mouth. Sometimes I can't even hear what I'm saying. Because it's like, again, creating from the higher dimensional reality and feeling into the frequency of what I'm sharing. And that's really lucidness, multidimensional access, but being embodied while we're in that space. And it's that frequency of integration and embodiment, basically like the work that I've been doing over this last while and really transmitting that frequency so that people, because we're all, it's almost like using the fact that we're all empaths, right? To just like bring us into a space of resonance and then allowing the body and the consciousness to perceive and unpack that frequency over time. So the way that I have broken this next masterclass down, which is on July 19th, this is the biggest part of my offer, is pretty much reaching up into, I think, probably around 7 density, where we have a lot of, I feel like the people that we're calling out are really people who are ground crew, who have jobs in the 3D, who have jobs in transforming the 3D in a really physical and visceral way. So maybe you're a nurse, maybe you're a doctor, maybe you're a teacher, maybe you feel like you're going to start a tech company or start some other initiative that's really actually going to transform human culture and society from the ground up. If you feel like that's something that you're here to do, and you also feel like you're a galactic or a starseed and you haven't figured out how to create that bridge, this space is created for you. And we're also going to be, it's through the exploration of being living stargates, as I call it. So a stargate is a place where galactic energy can come in these crazy massive amounts, and you know, we can travel through these gates and whatnot. But when we become a living stargate, it's like we can call in massive infinite amounts of cosmic energy, and through the swirling of our self, give birth to something visceral that, you know, lands in the society. Maybe it's a book, a project, an initiative, a nonprofit, or even just like you being of service in some way in your local community. That's not even, it doesn't have to be something concrete as a business. So we'll be talking about the energetics of that process in our physical body, and how to come into lucidity in our energy body so that we can create and fluentness. Because I would say that the thing that I love the most about myself is that I'm really good at creating stuff, and the state of which I create stuff, it's like I'll get this idea, like writing a book, and then I'll get like super sexually aroused, like my body will. And of course, this is after all of the healing around like rape and degradation and patriarchy and all of that stuff that clogged us up. But then, you know, this true creative energy lights up. And this is why I say sexual energy is going to save us all, is because without it, we can't create anything, right? So, you know, a big project comes in, I get super sexually aroused. I'll chemically swirl those things together, and next thing I know, it's out. And that process is something that we are all created to be. So if you're feeling a little stuck in your creation, then, you know, come and learn about the different processes and ways that energy and creation flows through our vessels, so it can just come out like an orgasm, right? That's how it's supposed to feel. So yeah,
You get the two workshops and the group healing ceremony. And it's also lullabies also.
Okay. What you talk.
Well, tell us about the soothing lullabies, because you've included that in the special offer as well. And so you've got you call it a quantum sound healing CD. And as people integrate this as part of the special offer and then they interact with this, what's coming through this music? Why were you excited to put these lullabies into the special offer for people to receive?
So the lullabies are really close to my heart. As we are coming into understanding of my work, is very holographic. Like I like to just envelop people in this space of like a big hug and just like do strong alchemical work inside the container. So this album, I was, I think, still 7 months pregnant, and I just really wanted to share this feeling of peace and co-creation I was feeling inside my nuclear family. Like my husband and I, we just have a really peaceful and magical life. And, that's not something either of us experience with our own family. And so our inner children is almost like we're always yearning for acceptance and love from our parents or like our creator, right? Really. So I created this album, and all of the different synthesizer sounds are encoded with different um, healing intentions, and each song addresses different really common traumas that our inner children in our body might be experiencing, like just feeling judged or criticized by our mother and thus feeling just totally unworthy and imperfect. Um, things like that. So the vibrations really address those specific vibrations in our body and our energy. Um, and yeah, it's like my favorite thing to share. It's actually available for free, but the recordings in HD are in this package. So obviously listening with headphones, like creates a whole new thing, but I just really love to share this medicine. It's so vital.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. So again, in the special offer, guys, you get the lullabies for inner starlings, and it gets a 6-track quantum sound healing CD to support your multidimensional healing and your inner starseed babies, which is so beautiful. Um, and again, you're going to get your 2 live calls, or 2 live workshops that are the Stargate Mechanics and Ground Crew Activation Masterclass as part as this special offer. And um, yeah, sign up. Let's see, the first class starts July 19th.
Yeah, so it's July 19th. It's just like a whole day in the field. This is a new thing that we're trying. I think, yeah, so we'll be spending 6 hours together in the field. And then I'm actually going to have integration material available as well, because I know that that amount of time we're going to move into some different spaces, and then maybe there'll be some support that's needed to integrate. So I'll be making a unique sound healing track for that as well.
Amazing. Amazing. Fantastic offer. I am excited for those of you all who are going to participate and take advantage of it. And again, to do so, and if you haven't gotten the full details, go to the special offer link. April has typed it in the chat. You can click on the special offer button on the webcast page where you're watching this call or listening to this call from now. And add it to the shopping cart. You'll get all the details on how to activate the workshop, and you'll be able to start listening to the lullabies and start getting into those activations and transmissions right away. So again, it's $97. There's a 2 payment option and a 30-day money-back guarantee. So we make it super easy for you to say yes, to go deeper into, and the activations that you're going to receive from Z. It's it's going to be a blessing for your heart and for your soul and for your mind and for your body. So take advantage of it. So that's there. Thank you for putting that together, Z. And with that, I want to jump into some Q&A calls. Got quite a few people coming up with their hands raised now, and some great questions that are coming in as well. The first question I want to take is, Colleen wants a clarification of something that you mentioned earlier. She's asking, what do you mean by our child's lower chakras are not clear? How do we know when they are clear, and how do we clear them?
I feel like the easiest way is to get in touch with how you're feeling in the moment. So I feel like when our inner children are alive, when our lower chakras are alive, we are feeling peaceful in the moment, relaxed in our body, and feeling playful, and feeling like the world is not a scary place but an interactive one, that we can have curiosity, and that when a new thing comes about, we have this inquisitiveness, instead of fear of any kind. We learn to have fear of new things, right? Think about when we in our relationships, like, do we feel like a warmth? Do we feel like we have this smooth flow of energy between our sacral chakras, or is there like awkwardness or jaggedness? Are we present with when we're eating our food? I feel like that's something that has been seriously a new thing as I'm working through this grief and this loss, that like all of a sudden like there's a whole new level of like sensorial experience. Like, just the other day, like, honestly, I feel like Kara is still like, there's a piece of her that's in my body that's still experiencing 3D through me, like a watcher, because I've started to like eat food differently. And I'll just say, like, the other day I was eating a cherry and I put the cherry in my mouth, and usually I like chew it, but this time I like suckled on it, and like all the juices came out, and I was just like, wow, like this flavor is great. And then I'm like, wait a minute, like that was like not me. It was like I was tasting it for the first time. And I have a lot of local permaculture farms, and I remember days after she left, like there was a big chunk of her in me, and I was like eating these greens and these eggs that just came from like this organic farm down the street from me, and just feeling so grateful, like so present with the sensory physical experience of being alive. So I feel like all of that is very lower chakra, because our lower chakras vibrate slower and they're more in resonance with our physical body, whereas our higher chakras are more resonant with other dimensions. So how connected are we to our physical moment to moment experience, and how we're really feeling inside of it, and be really honest, because a lot of times, or like how we react to things, like to small things, like if our house is messy, like do we get into a sour mood, for example, like being really aware of how our awareness moves through time, in a very present way, will give us a good indicator on where we are in the lower parts of our pyramid.
It's wonderful. Thank you for answering that, Colleen. Thank you for writing in. Next question I want to take, I want to make y'all with your hands raised, the panelists. So I'm going to ask you, hopefully it's on your video, and I'll unmute you on my side. But the first person I want to go to is Jenny. Jenny G. I want to welcome you to the call, and let me unmute you over here. And Jenny, you may have to give me there you go. Hey, Jenny.
I did. Hey. So thank you so much, Z, for sharing with us. I have 2 daughters, and so hearing about your Kara's transmission, it was very beautiful and very sad as well, but she's with you for the rest of your life, and that's such a gift. And my question is, as a mother of 2 20-year-olds, a 20 and 24-year-old, I'm in a, I have difficulty having them connect with me, which is very normal these days for mothers and daughters. But I really want to take this opportunity to somehow, I don't know, make a legacy, or make sure that they know how much I love them. And I don't know that I'm doing that right or what to go next, but I always felt separate from them. And that was because I had a block, a spinal block. And so I never really felt them leave my body. And that's my question for you is, what would you suggest for, I guess, using my spiritual strength to connect with their souls? Although, on this earth, it doesn't really seem like we connect all that much. So just curious.
Okay. So pretty multifaceted answer. I'm going to start by saying that one of the biggest gifts that Kara gave me personally was actually bringing me into this understanding that it was like when I was holding her, I experienced what like the purity of a mother's love felt like. And I also felt like just the purity of how much she loved me, like just in the pureness of being an infant. And I feel like that, the relationship between me and my biological mother has been very disconnected. You know, I feel like she is almost like on a different planet, and like the heart connection has been something that is hard, because the heart connection, like, it can be present without agreement about paradigms and judgments and all of that stuff. It's just what it is. It's love. So that connection with my own mother, I've not been here for like 15 years. And I guess part of it was that, like, because I didn't experience like the profoundness of unconditional divine mother's love when I was a child, that part of me was felt separated or felt abandoned by, you know, the divine mother. And so when I held my baby in those days that I got to be with her, I experienced that merge inside myself. And I feel like that's why I say the inner child work is so important, because, you know, we're all the same. It's the field of oneness. We're all one. And so we are our own mother, and our mother is the mother of our inner daughter. And so when we find this, that merging inside of ourselves, so then I received a call from my mom, and I felt like the openness in our heart for the first time in like 15 years. You know, since I was like a tiny little kid. I mean, I don't even know if we really had deep bonding moments when I was young anyway. So I feel like there's a lot of density around the heart here. Like what's blocking is like shame and guilt. The shame and guilt of feeling like you weren't a good enough mother, or like, you know, you could have done something different, or like, you know, you question. And this actually keeps you from just like being present with how deeply you love them, which is really the important thing. So let's actually just shift this energy here into forgiveness, into forgiveness, into forgiveness. Into remembrance that the reality is so absolutely malleable, that anything that seemed like it was a heavy presence or a rigid presence in the past, just allow that to dissipate. Allow things to flow, allow things to become fluid, and come into forgiveness and accept, open. Yeah, and I would really dive into exploring, you know, your own relationship with your mother, and especially your relationship with the, you know, God, as the world calls it, the oneness, the one which births all things. Yeah, and there's some things, of course, in the sacral, again with the lower chakras, right? It's like, this is where so much of our work is, because, you know, like, we should really be able to be in a room with people that are completely not spiritual at all, who are completely asleep, and, you know, still be in a space of connection and peace and warmth with them. And this is like a lot of our sacral energies have been just attacked, right? So feel into the sacral energy as well, and see if it's like a thing where, like, do you feel like it's even possible to have that somatic mammal connection to someone? And see if there's anything blocking you up in there as well.
I feel I can have that connection with people that aren't my family.
That's good. Good start.
That's good. That's awesome, Jenny. Thank you so much for calling in.
Thank you.
And one thing I would suggest, Jenny, actually, Jane, before you hang up, I want to ask you a question.
Yes,
Do you know you love your daughters?
absolutely.
Then allow that to lead.
Okay.
Whenever that doubt comes in, because it's not being received in a particular way, it's not being reflected, or because someone else can't allow that love to be absorbed, just understand that there is love. And if the way that you're translating isn't a language that they can necessarily hear it, ask for the guidance
Mhm.
for
Thank-
another way, in another creative way, and amplify it with play, amplify it with joy, rather than a place of I don't know and I'm not capable, into a place, well, it's through play and joy that I'm going to allow it to seep in. And see if that also sets a new grid line for what's possible in that flow, because we are creating new grids. And so you don't have to create that love from the old grid line anymore necessarily, even though it'd be wonderful to heal it as well. We're on new earth. It's the new normal, and make that fun and play and joy of the love that you know is absolute to lead those new ley lines that you're creating.
Thank you.
Hi, Jenny. Hope that helps.
It does. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Had to take it back into the ley lines. See, I just felt it. But isn't it true what we're doing with Gaia, what we're doing on Earth with these grid lines, we're also doing within ourselves in some ways?
Yeah, absolutely. One and the same. One and the same.
Amazing. Let me go to another live caller. Aaron, we're going to make you a panelist right now. Let's see if Aaron pops up. Aaron, I'm going to unmute you, and if you want to turn on your video, that would be awesome.
And there.
Hi, Aaron.
Hi. Hi, Z. Hi, John. I am so proud to be here and to be able to share with everything that you are sharing. My question is, I have been feeling some of the creative blocks that you were describing earlier, and the way that that manifests for me, I think I'm noticing it the most in the physical, with low hormones due to aging, menopause, and really wanting to infuse my creativity and my sexual expression, not only supporting it physically, but energetically as well. And I'm just wondering if you have any particular suggestions for me, how I can support unblocking that, the lower chakras, sexuality and creativity.
Yeah. So I'm paying attention to the way that you're wording your question. And the first thing that jumped out at me was you saying that I have hormone imbalances because of aging and because of menopause. And so this is a belief system here that we're like,
Yes.
oh, because I'm of this age, this is going to happen to my body. And then this means that I'm going to be sick. And so let's find that and start to remove that from the energy body in all dimensions and all of time space. And know that actually in this higher vibrational space, we, and this is like not new information, you know, my ancestors would say like, you know, the tonic or the breath of immortality, like they were really talking about the process of rejuvenation with chi energy. So I don't know if you practice any qigong. There is this incredible exercise called the deer exercise that specifically channels sexual energy, is available for men and women. Let's see here. So for women, if you haven't hit menopause, you can actually stop your menstrual cycle with this exercise by recycling the blood and every month. And so instead of having a menstrual cycle, you actually save the egg, which then also, because you're recycling the blood energy, you get really flush, and that's why they say like you're peachy. The immortality peach is just like having this flush amount of chi and blood energy, life force energy that keeps us alive. So Erin, do you practice any qigong?
I have in the past, yes.
Uh-huh. So I would make that like a daily exercise, at least an hour and a half of just cultivating qi and bringing it through. And I do feel like there is some pain here around the cervical area, the lower belly, something that you're carrying that needs to be let go, some pain there. So that you could actually allow the light, the sunlight to come all the way through your body. Do start to pull it in through they call it the ovarian palace. So pulling it in through the ovaries and pulling light through the ovaries, like clearing them, rejuvenating them, and allow the energy to move through your body. And yeah, I would recommend at least an hour and a half to flush all the cells with qi to begin to experience the benefits of that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and
So
to keep saying that, you know, there's no time. We are moving out of time. I do like, I mean, I can't really say because I'm young right now, but like I really feel like our so we had one roommate who had a job, everybody else didn't, and it was really hard for her, even though she loved her jobs. Like her jobs were the best things ever. Like she was really fixing the healthcare system. Like it was like her mastermind thing. But she still worked for someone and had hours, and so it was really hard for her because everybody else on this land was like really in timelessness. Like we really don't even know what month it is, right? Nevertheless, how old we are. So start to shift out of that paradigm of there being time and that we die. We have this short lifespan. Like I really believe that, you know, we can live much longer, like 500 years if we wanted to, maybe 800 years if we wanted to. It's just, you know, we really don't know.
Yes. Thank you. I love that perspective.
Erin, thanks for calling it in. And let's not call it a perspective. Let's start making it a belief.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Let's start repatterning what's possible because we can. Because we can. And it starts with you. So it's absolutely fantastic. Y'all, we're going to run the replay all weekend long for the rest of the week. So the video and the audio of today's call will be available a little bit later this evening. You can access those by going to beyondtheordinaryshow.com/replay, but we'll send an email out with a link as well. So watch out for that email, open it up, click on the link, and it'll take you right to the call. Of course, Z's special offer where you're going to get, of course, the lullabies, which are so special and dear. I can feel how special they are, Z, and the way that you created them. So beautiful. Those are included on there, and you get the 2 workshops with Z. The Stargate Mechanics and Ground Crew Activation Masterclass. All the experiences. Ozzy, you're muted.
Sorry, it's actually 3 in 1. So 2 workshops and then 1 Oracle medicine ceremony.
Oh, 2 live workshops and a group healing ceremony. Okay, so it's 3. I've underplayed it and even more value. So fantastic, guys. $97 for those 3 components and the lullabies. Take advantage of it. Again, it's $97, 2 payment option, 30-day money-back guarantee. I hope you guys go deeper with Z. It's such a beautiful experience and ride, and the transmissions. I'm assuming you're going to sing and transmit that way, and it's all full-blown ceremony, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so fantastic. So again, you can get to that special offer by clicking on the special offer button or clicking on the link that April typed into the chat box here on tonight's webinar. And Z, with this, is there a final thought or message that you want to leave us with this evening as we wrap up tonight's call?
I'm just really happy to be here. I love you all so much. Maybe I'll just like sing another song. Is it okay?
Oh, beautiful. I'd love that. Yes.
Mhm. Oh. Okay.
So beautiful. Thank you, Z. And thank you everybody for being on tonight's call. Wishing you a blessed night. And I look forward to seeing you on the next call on Beyond the Ordinary Show. Bye, Z.